everybody, it's Katie Joe. We're going to talk a little bit about Bathsheba today. Now, if you were going to look up Bathsheba and you Google her on the internet, most of the time when you do that, you're going to see images of a seductress because she's been coined throughout time and throughout history as a seductress. So let's look at this story a little more deeply, okay? Let's talk about this story just a little more deeply. Bathsheba was a young girl just because most girls at that age when they were married and that they were childbearing ages were very young. And she was home, and her husband was off fighting the war. And King David looked through her window, saw her bathing, or it was on the roof. Not sure where exactly it was. And the next thing you know is Bathsheba is a young girl at home. There's king's soldiers at the door who escort her to the king's bed. Now, over time, Bathsheba becomes pregnant by King David. Now, by becoming pregnant and she is married to another man, even though it wasn't her choice, even though it was against her will to be in the king's bed, by being pregnant, she was now an adulteress. And adulteresses were stoned to death, whether it was their fault or not. So here she was in a particularly bad situation. So King David, what he did is he had her husband murdered and he married her. So when I think about Bathsheba and I think about that story, what would it be like to have soldiers knock on your door? Maybe you love your husband and maybe you don't love your husband, but what if she had other children? What if she had more children at home and they escort me to the king's bed? What would it be like to have to marry the murderer of your husband and to marry your rapist? David was David and Goliath, and that story is amazing. David and Goliath is by far one of my favorite Bible stories ever, one of my favorite Bible stories to tell. And David was also, at the end of his life, later on, a rapist. What happens when power corrupts? Does this mean that the stories aren't true? Does this take away from David and Goliath? It doesn't. But can we look at this? And instead of whenever you see an image of Bathsheba, the seductress, whenever you hear those being told that way, I hope that you look at it differently. And I hope that you look at it through the lenses and understand what it must have been like for her. Have a great day.